Hello and welcome to a special edition of DSI Live. I'm your host tonight, Vanessa Emerson, founder of Dental Speaker Institute and Dental Speakers Bureau. And I'm here with two of our beloved DSI faculty members, Mark LeBlanc and Katherine Eitel. Welcome, you guys.
Hi, glad to be here.
Thank you. Me too.
Really glad you're here. We've been planning this for about a week. When things really started shifting midweek last week, we talked about what can we do, what can we bring some messages to the industry. And so I've been really looking forward to tonight, where we want to talk about how can we not only survive, or how can we survive, but also how can we thrive during a time that none of us have seen before in our industry. Something that's very, very unique, something for all of us that is new, that we're going through. And we want to really talk about how can we stay strong, and how can we get creative with our businesses, and what are good, solid strategies for moving forward as speakers. I also want to preface here that our listeners will be speakers many of whom also consult, but we'll also have a good deal of our dental industry meeting planners. Everyone is in a little bit of a headspin right now, right? We're all trying to figure out. I've been using the analogy, I feel a little bit like I'm in a Yahtzee cup, and I'm waiting for them to throw out the dice just to see where we're going to land. Because I think that there's so much that's unsure right now. I mean, I think that's just what it is. That's what it feels like to me. There's some uncertainty out there for sure, and we know that causes fear naturally for people. And so what I was hoping we could talk about tonight, and I didn't even really introduce you. What I should have probably said, but I'm just assuming everybody knows you guys because we know you from Jumpstart and from your different workshops. And of course, Mark and Katherine are both speaker development coaches, both on the business side as well as on the speaking and training side. And not only are Mark and Katherine coaches to many of us, or teachers to many of us, but they're also really leaders in the industry as speakers themselves, and have been speakers for many years. And of course, those are all reasons that I thought it would be great for us to have a chat tonight. So thanks again for being here, guys.
You're welcome.
So let's dive in. Let's dive in with, right now there's a lot of conversation. There's speculation. There's news reports, and sometimes they seem to conflict, and then we're hearing stories in the industry. I mean, there's a lot going on out there. How do we weed through that to center ourselves and make good choices with our own businesses and how we serve our clients? I'm going to let one of you decide who would like to start and maybe guide us on your thoughts on that.
Katherine?
So what comes to my mind, Vanessa, when you say there's so much out there, how do we sort through it and make good decisions about where to go forward today? I've been reading a lot lately about the neuroscience of what the brain does in different environments. And it's fascinating.
Yeah.
What I've learned, and it's really been, one of the books I've been reading is called Conversational Intelligence. And it's this idea that in given situations, we're always releasing chemicals and hormones that inform our mind and then our body what to do. And when we're comfortable, when we feel safe, when we feel secure, when we feel successful, when we feel welcome, when we feel prepared, all of those, positive things, we have lots of serotonin, lots of dopamine, lots of these happy feeling chemicals that are pulsing through, and that tells our brain all is well. And it actually focuses our attention in the parts of our brain that are creative, that solve problems, that look for openings and look for opportunities, and are willing to take some risks, and it's in that very open, thoughtful, expansive part of our brain, which is where the answers are. But when we start to feel opposite of that, when we start to feel not safe and uncertain, and afraid and fearful, and all of those emotions, or attacked, or we're even angry or resentful, anything like that starts to release adrenaline and cortisol. And those chemicals signal us to go into the reptilian part of our brain, this primitive part of our brain that actually literally narrows our perspective, and both physically, like we lose our peripheral vision physically, but even intellectually, we lose our perspective narrows, because primally we needed to have a hyper focus to survive a threat. And so it does help us narrow and focus and make an immediate reaction, have an immediate reaction to survive, but it keeps us in just survival mode, not in creativity, thriving mode. And so I've noticed that if I get too much news, if I get too much on social media, if I stay inside my house too much, if I think about and worry about the future, which in my world I have termed as negatively fantasizing. I want to positively fantasize, not negatively. And that's what worry is. And so, when of course it's a natural thing that we all do. I catch myself. I just caught myself earlier today. What I'm learning to do through this understanding of my brain is to know that the minute I start to feel, because you can feel it, you can feel the cortisol start to release and the adrenaline. And it happens when you start to look at your bank account, or you look at your calendar, or we got another call today of a cancellation of a program. And so, as we begin to get those things and we begin to wonder, how long can we last? What will happen to us? All of that starts to release, and we start to have actually fewer tools to take advantage of the opportunities that are right. Our vision narrows. And so maybe that's been helpful to me, to say, let me heighten my awareness of what's triggering me to narrow my focus, what's triggering me to feel threatened. And there's a lot we're uncertain about. I think that's the truth. We don't know we don't know how long this is going to be, and we don't know how the dice are going to come out of the Yahtzee cut. We don't know about that. And but I have found that there are things I am certain of.
Yeah.
And so when I go, I'm uncertain about that, like how long my money will last, or how can I stay in business through this. When that uncertainty pops up and I feel all those chemicals release, I've said to myself, what am I certain about? What am I certain of? And I am certain that I have been here before. I have been very close to bankruptcy, and I have been at a place where I did not know if, there have been places where if I thought, if I don't get a call pretty soon, I'm out of business. And I've reinvented myself from some ashes in my life, as most of us have. And so I am certain that I have done that before. And I'm certain that I could do it again. Even if, it's like that, what's the most likely to happen? What's the worst that can happen? What's the best that can happen? What's most likely to happen? I think what's most likely to happen is wherever we do come out of that Yahtzee cup, I'm pretty sure that most of us have the intellect and the creativity and the ability and the passion to see us through whatever that is to the other. So focusing, I'm certain that I'm loved. I'm certain that I'm surrounded and live in a country where we have some of the most generous people on the planet, and creative people on the planet. And so there are things we're certain. I'm trying to stay focused on, what am I certain of? What am I grateful for? And how can I keep myself in that frontal lobe, in that more creative spot where things look brighter? And so I think there is some science around, if we raise our awareness, I think those are things we can tactily do immediately.
That's powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Mark?
I just want to say ditto. What a great way to start off the conversation with just the idea of awareness and being more aware. And I think I've been on my own 38 years, and I've had some good years and some bad years, and some great years, and a few years that I would rather just leave in my rearview mirror.
Mhm.
I think sometimes, and Vanessa, you were so kind to sort of put Catherine and I on a pedestal in the introduction. And I don't mean to put words in Catherine's mouth, but we are afraid.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, Catherine, but I mean, I wake up in the middle of the night thinking, okay, what is going to happen here?
Yeah.
And so that's normal. That's a normal response, and you are okay to feel that fear. One of my phrases I sometimes say is, fear never really sleeps. It's always at arm's length. I don't know enough about the science behind it, as Catherine was introducing us to, but that gives me great comfort. For someone who, like I said, have been on my own, I think when our back is against the wall, that's when we tend to be more creative and innovative than ever before. When I think about in my adult life and the major things that have happened that were beyond my control, we have no control over the economic meltdown of 2008.
Right.
We have no control over, the tragedy of 9/11 and what happened in our world, or in the early 90s, the war in Iraq. Those are world events that have a ripple effect. For me personally, I'm just such a strong, diehard believer in I only focus on what I have control over. And I have no control over whether somebody fires me as their coach, even if they don't want to, if they're in a position where they need to let me go, or a speaking engagement that cancels or gets delayed to some yet unknown date. I have no control over those things. And you both have been in sessions of mine where I talk about your business having 3 train tracks, a booking track, your business development track, a delivery track, and a money track. Our emotions run on the money track. We feel better when our cash flow is good, or we've got a little extra money in the bank, or we can look out a month or 2 or 3 and see that, we have receivables coming in that are going to, sort of help us get through the next 90 days. That makes us feel better. Our ego runs on the delivery track. What is or is not on our calendar in the last 90 days or the next 90 days. But I often encourage people, let those tracks take care of themselves. You will figure that out. Focus on your booking track or your business development track. That's what I have control over. And so even if I'm moving like a snail, at a snail's pace during this time, as long as I am in gear, I'm in charge of my destiny.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I'm glad of the reminder, Mark, about that I love that distinction that our emotions are on one track, our egos on one, but maybe our intellect and our skills, our doing can be on this track. And that's the place, that we have some control over. I just,
I think we're having a little bit of a delay, so I'm going to hop in for just a minute. I think it's frozen here of Catherine. Oh, here we go. Here you're back.
There we go. I remember, it reminds me of a story I sometimes tell about myself. When I was, I don't know, whatever, 8 or 9 or something, I I had really bad growing pains in my legs for like a year. I would wake up about every third or fourth night crying because my legs hurt. And I was a tall kid. I was a tall girl for my age. And I remember my mother would come in and, she might give me some aspirin or, they'd put a little ice pack on. But I remember one time my dad walked, he came in to comfort me, and then there was no comfort. Nothing was working. And I said, it still hurts. And he was like, well, I have to go back to bed and you have to try. And I remember he got to the door and he turned around and he said, honey, growing just hurts. It just hurts. And I was thinking about that today. I was thinking, growing can hurt. Like, we have to grow right now. We're not going to be the same on the other side of this. We're not. We're going to be changed. The world will change. Our industries change.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be different. And so I just keep focusing on how can we, like Mark said, how can we be okay with feeling the pain and the uncertainty and know that that's normal. And I'm certainly not, we've had I have nothing on the calendar for the next 2 months. It's all gone, and so I know I'm not alone in that. And there's a little comfort in that, knowing that we're all experiencing that. And so, but I think that growing is what I mean is where we grow the most and where we really dig down really deeply is often challenging, and at times where things hurt. And we often grow the most from that, not always in the times when things are just easier. So maybe give that a new context. I think about the Nelson Mandelas of the world and the Viktor Frankls, who spent this time in our history in these horrific, certainly more horrific than this, and for longer periods of time than we're likely to be in it. And they came out resilient, still kind, still made a mark, a major contribution to our world. So all is not lost. And I think I just keep trying to remember that and say a lot of other people have been. You think about Europe after World War II, Germany was completely devastated. There was no government, there was no income, there was no work, there was no food, there was, and it has risen that country like a phoenix from the ashes. They've rebuilt everything. And it's not to discount the pain and the loss of life and the tragedy that was. And they rebuilt.
Yeah. So we're talking about mindset here, really. And, I want to be able to get to like some business strategy too. I think these are such great points. And I also want to share with you before we hop over to business strategy,
that was frozen. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. We'll hang here. That's part of the travails of living in the country, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But Catherine, we were saying, as far as mindset, Mark talked about sometimes I think it really is human to wake up in the middle of the night and then remember the realities of once we get out of that dream and back into the reality. Something that has really helped me is meditation. For many years, meditation has helped me quiet the sound in my head. And I find that I can go off on, even when times are great, you go off on your list of what you have to do tomorrow or whatever. And I want to share a resource. I actually have it here on my phone. It's called Calm. And it might be backwards when you see it there, but you can't really hear it right now, but let me turn it up here. You can hear the rain.
Yeah.
So even just here at night and 2:30 in the morning when you're laying there and you can't drown out what you read on CNN or Fox News, listen to the rain. There are so many applications that we have available to be able to quiet. That's Calm. I think it's calm.com, and you can do a little app. It's I think I paid for it, but I think I have a free version. And
they have some great sleep stories on there. And
guided meditations. Exactly. And so what we fill our mind with is what we're going to get more of in our life. And it's such an important reminder. Really, for me, that's the law of attraction. Like everybody has a little different feeling about that, but to me, it's the idea of I'm pulling into my life what I'm thinking about. Like I'm magnetizing it by being more creative. I can be more creative when I'm not thinking about how bad things are, but it's thinking instead when I ask myself the right questions, like how can I, or what, or, you know, the right kind of questions. So let's maybe turn our topic to what are those questions we could be asking ourselves right now, and what are some of the things that we can do, not only as speakers, but also planners in the group. You know, Catherine, you mentioned, I think many of our colleagues are in a similar situation, and the planners that are listening are those who have a meeting in the next couple of months are having to make really tough choices right now. Can I go virtual? Like, I'm sure they would like to be able to, but you know, some meetings are so large, it would be really a big miracle to be able to pull that off in a short period of time. So what are some of those questions we can ask ourselves in our event industry, especially here in dental? Um, what should we be asking ourselves? How can we pivot now and not focus on the past or what might be, but how can we focus on this present moment and be able to help lead in our industry, help bring solutions to, oh, the dentists, you know?
Well, I think
Right.
I had a conversation with the client today, and he wanted to send this whole series of emails, and he had, you know, all of these great, and they were good ideas, but I cautioned him a little because I said, you know, there's a lot of noise out there right now. A lot of it's good, a lot of it's mandated that they have to do. Patients and the communities, I'm getting dozens and dozens and dozens of emails every day that almost look alike, from my utility company to my bank, from my, you
Costco.
know, yeah, Costco. I mean, if you've had any kind of a relationship with any kind of business or any kind of person in business, you're getting emails from them about how they're handling the situation, what you can expect, and I understand it, but it's a little overwhelming. And so I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I said my instincts tell me that we should see, you know, what could we offer that would be small, digestible things that would be helpful in the moment and maybe help people prepare for when we're coming out. So for example, I just had a conversation with my team about how could we use this time to create some video or some text or something that
Let's see if she can come back here. Mark, do you want to jump off on that thought for a minute? Well, now we're back.
sorry. I'm so sorry. Thinking about how, you know, what is it we could do right now that would help people feel better, that the minute they get back to work, they don't, the Lion Speak isn't trying to create something at that time. We're creating it now. We're creating it now with the full belief that people are going to go back to work and they're going to need to know how to build their own businesses. They're going to, so maybe meeting planners could think about, you know, how could we give some small chunks of information to help our attendees know how to get back to work when that's coming, or you know, that those kinds of sort of outward looking, future looking in small chunks. Maybe they don't have to take their whole conference virtual. Maybe they take parts of it virtual in pieces that people can digest, you know.
Exactly.
Mhm.
I have some thoughts on that too, as far as how they do that. I'm going to come back to that after Mark has a chance here to share.
Well, first, if there are any planners out there having meetings and if any of their speakers have canceled, I think Catherine and I are both available.
Amen.
And we will move heaven and earth to get there.
Yep.
You know, whenever I have a little two-step questioning process, whenever I'm faced with an obstacle, a challenge, an issue, or something I'm facing that seems daunting. And the two questions are, number one, how can I ... and I fill it in with, how can I have more impact and influence with the people I serve best? So you could apply that question to a meeting you're having or a client situation or your marketing plan, but just getting me into that mindset. How can I have more impact? I mean, that's the dream for so many of us. How can I have more impact and influence with the people that I serve best? And I don't even give my brain a chance to answer that question when I follow up with the second question, what can I specifically do in order to make that happen? And that little two-step questioning process is probably responsible for more of my content and intellectual property than I can even begin to imagine. You know, you think, how can I attract more prospects? What can I specifically do in order to make that happen? How can our team work together better? What can I specifically do in order to make that happen? You know, the interesting thing about this time in our history, when I look back over the course of my career, the two most successful periods of my career, bar none, were the 6 months around 9/11 and the 6 months following the economic meltdown of 2008.
Mm.
And I can't say that I planned it. It might have been brilliant. It might have been accidentally brilliant, or might have been divine guidance. But I go back in my history, especially those two times, and even now today, where my mindset is going is, number one, create something new. A new program, a new product, a new presentation, a new service.
Write the damn book.
Right. Well, you said that.
Not that I'm not talking to myself in any way.
And right around 9/11, I created a coaching relationship called our Whatever It Takes coaching relationship. And in the next 6 months, I sold 53 Whatever It Takes coaching clients. In 2008, I was actually...
Problem with, oh, there we go. Okay, we had a little issue for a second. I think we're okay.
In 2008, I was walking my first Camino when the economy went in the tank. And I came back to the United States from Spain into discouragement and despair and disheartenment and depression. And that was only in NSA.
Yeah.
You know, and so much of what I heard was what was being canceled.
Yeah.
Well, that's the delivery track of our business model. And so if you're focused on what's being canceled, you cannot be focused on what you can create. And in 2008, and I was scared, and I think I came back, and if I remember right, I was about $55,000 in debt, and, you know, for a variety of reasons. But I thought, what can I do? And I didn't call it then, but it was the makings of what I now call our signature 30/30 coaching relationship, where I just meet with someone for 30 minutes every 30 days. It's a little bit of creativity, a little bit of strategy, a little bit of accountability. But I remember when I was fashioning this new thing, I made a list of 22 of my favorite past clients. Today, I know that as Sector 3, new business opportunities with past clients. And I made 22. I didn't know they were called Storm Starter calls, but I picked up the phone. I made 22 telephone calls. And again, these were favorites. And I had my short message was simply, you know, hey, this is Mark, and it's been some time since we last connected, and I created this new thing, and you need to know about it. Well, because I was calling my past favorites, it was almost on cue. It's like, well, if Mark LeBlanc thinks I need to know about this, I guess I need to know about it. I booked 20, I re-engaged 20 coaching clients. And I was off to the races.
Yeah.
And so this idea of creating something new, and I was on a radio interview with a station in Los Angeles in late 2008, and we were talking about this. I wrote an article titled, "Don't You Dare Blame the Economy."
Mm-hmm.
And Siemens booked me 13 times to bring that message around the United States.
Wow.
And so this interviewer said to me, "Well, Mark, that's all nice and dandy for somebody like you, but what about that normal small business owner? What can they do?" Now I'm making this up on the fly. I, and I said, "Well, it's easy." I said, "There are three things. Number one, you create something new. Number two, it infuses some new energy into you, and it gives you a reason to go to the marketplace and begin to look for new prospects. Number three, it gives you a reason to go to your past clients and re-engage them." And that's exactly what I've done at these critical times. And so while I'm not going to say I'm giddy about what's going on, I think compassion is the new gift during this difficult time.
Definitely.
My team is working on something new that we're going to introduce probably next week. And we're excited about it. We think it's going to meet the best of what our prospects need and want during this time.
Excited to hear now. That was a carrot dangled through. I'll bite. No, that makes
you see how when Mark lights up when he's talking about that, because he's creating, and I guarantee you, back to that whole idea of the neuroscience behind it, the good chemicals are flowing, and not in the middle of the night when you said you're waking up and you're worrying, just like me and just like Vanessa, but also you're at least balancing it with some moments of creativity and what's possible and how can we meet the needs. I mean, I think just in some ways, like today my client said, "How much do we owe you for?" I said, you don't owe me anything. Like we'll circle back around about this, but right now, just how can I serve? How can I help? And I'm finding they are. I had one client that said, "We're of course going to need to move." It was just in another week in LA. She said, "We're going to have to move this. We don't know to when." She said, "But we're going to just, if you'd like, we can go ahead in good faith and pay you for the money we would have paid you in a week, and then we'll just reschedule." So I see us being generous. I see people being generous to us. I see opportunities to step in and help other people. And I think whether we're helping a client or we're helping a colleague or a friend and family, I think you're right. Compassion right now and just really just sitting with what is with people. We may catch them at a time where they're really fearful and they just need us to be with them. And
what's really helpful, I think, about this is that we are all in it together. We've all been through our own personal hells.
Right.
People will lose someone that matters to them, or a house, or a bankruptcy, or they're like, we all have challenges, but it's when it could be isolating when you're the one going through the challenge and everybody else is like doing really well. I'm not saying that this is better or that's better as much as it's different. And in some way it's actually easier because we are all in the same boat. I mean, I think we'd be hard pressed to find a speaker out there that's not having, how could it possibly be that they're not getting those in-person meetings are just being canceled across the board, in the coming couple of months. So we're more likely to really understand where each other's coming from and be able to give each other a break. And we already are in, I think, the best industry. I can't imagine a better industry, literally. For how many years have we said that? Dentistry attracts the best people anyway. Like, okay, I'm a little biased, but there just tend to be so empathetic and kind and generous and loving anyway, that we're going to shine in this time. I just really believe our industry is going to shine. I want to touch back here on something that Mark said, but first let me just throw in a thought on Katherine and your comments to the meeting planners. One thought I want to be sure that we share here is that how easy it is to do a virtual presentation. And I want to share this for both the speaker and the planner, that I think we as speakers are missing an opportunity if we do stop marketing, but what I mean by that really is to modify your message. You know, many speakers have ongoing campaigns that go out to meeting planners, just like there are websites that have the COVID notice at the top. What if the top of your email campaign says something like, are you thinking you might have to cancel or postpone your meeting? Did you know how easy it is to create a virtual presentation? I think there are a lot of smaller meetings, societies, study clubs, where it would be super easy. Like, just like we're recording this on Zoom tonight, it'd be really easy for a speaker to have a Zoom account and be able to still reach everybody in that study club virtually. And what a gift that would be. My thought around that is that most of the speakers I know, I think I'd have to really scratch my head to find a topic where this wouldn't fit. But I think all of us as topic area experts have something within our course content that we can tweak and modify that is really super timely, that those dentists need to know now and that their teams need now. I picture it when we're able to go back to the office, I want our dentist to be able to hop on that horse at a gallop, you know, no ramping up. So if while we're off, I've borrowed your term, Mark, probably every day for the last week, that there's no better time to be a speaker, right? So I've heard you say this before, but there truly is not a better time to be a speaker or a planner, because if we can get creative, now's the time. What I'm seeing in my, and I am wrapping it back around to what I'm going to ask you, Mark. But what I'm seeing with the people I speak to every day is that they're finding now's the right time to do that website. Now they have time. Now's the right time to write the book, Mark. Right now, now's the right time to do some of these things, to work on that presentation, to improve their presentation skills. So with that in mind, let me turn this back to you, Mark, because you had kind of queued this up about content and intellectual property and what actions could we take now. What are some of your suggestions for those of us who are finding we have less time or more time on our calendar, less engagements? How can we decide, what's the strategy behind deciding what is that next right step? What should we work on? And do you have ideas on that for us?
Well, that's a good question, and there's really a lot to unpack there. So I'll keep this as brief as I can. I think there's that moment when you wake up and you know you're going to be working from home today, and you don't know when your next trip is going to be. You just want to pull the covers over your head.
Especially if it's cold.
Right, exactly. And of course, I'm in Minnesota, so it's colder here than where you are. But I think there are hurdles that we have to get up and over every day. And so, your morning routine and how you set your day up is so important that if you have a 3 or 4 or 5 step morning routine, adopt it, embrace it, understand how important that is for setting yourself up. And if meditation or prayer or 17 minutes of stretching or walking the dog for 20 minutes, whatever that morning routine is incredibly important to how you set up the rest of your day. I think, and I do believe, I spoke on the evening of 9/11. And the first words out of my mouth to a group of 20 emerging speakers was, there has never been a better time to be a professional speaker. That was the first time I uttered those words. And you could have heard a pin drop. And I said, I can hardly think of a topic that is not more important tomorrow than was yesterday. How we position ourselves, how we package our work, how we promote our work will determine just as we move through this. No one accomplishes anything great alone. Now, I've been fortunate that this week, last week and this week, I haven't had a coaching client flag on me or bail on me, and I'm sure it's coming, and I will respect his or her decision when that happens. But in between the delivery of my work, I have to constantly be looking at my menu of programs, products, presentations, and services, and what needs to change or to be reshaped. You've heard me ad nauseum say you need to create a business model that you are excited about. I think most everyone, while not everyone has the creative gene in their DNA, most everyone has an idea or a hunch, some intuitive or gut feeling of how they want to be of better service out in the marketplace. Well, here's the hard news. Your excuse of no time is now gone.
Yeah.
It is gone.
Yeah.
And if you are a speaker, consultant, author, trainer, coach, and you don't have a Zoom account, that better be your first step tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because this idea of being able to jump on a video call like this and record it and share it, or one-on-one conversations with people. And so even though we might be socially distanced from our family and friends and coworkers and staff and team, we need to look for ways to be emotionally connected. And while, yes, we can send an email or mail a note or a card or a book, I think voice to voice and face to face is going to be more important than ever before. I built my business on the mantra where 2 or 3 are gathered in the name of growing their business. By God, I want to be there. And we have 3 here. And so anyone, if wants to get creative, can raise their hand and find a pal or find an accountability partner for free, a colleague, a friend that they can brainstorm ideas. And maybe in your routine and in the profile of your ideal week, maybe you create for some, maybe every Monday and every Thursday at 9 o'clock in the morning is, creative hour. Every 5 o'clock in the afternoon is happy hour. Happy hour. But you start to plan your new profile of your ideal week out that includes creativity, whether it's writing, brainstorming, looking at possibilities, because I believe we're going to get through this. We're going to get through it together. Katherine, you said earlier in the call, it is not going to look the same when we come out on the other side of this. It will be forever changed. Now, I take comfort in the fact, or confidence or delusion, that it is going to be better.
I do too. I think that some ways of doing business and communicating is going to be easier, and things will be faster. And I think we're seeing a kind of kindness and compassion and a very short fuse for people who are blaming other people or throwing the blame game around. I think we're done with that. I think this we are starting to say no more. We're one kind of people here as Americans and as world citizens. And so I think we're going to be better for this. I know we are. I'm certain of it. I'm absolutely certain of it. Mark, I loved the idea of having a moment that is set aside every week, if not every day, for creative, and maybe inviting people and choosing some people to invite virtually to come in and share that creativity, to bounce things around. I can remember early in my career, Janice, Hurley, Melinda, and I rented a hotel room one time, and we said, we're going to just split the cost, and we're going to bring a recording. They were on VHS tapes at the time. We rented a VHS tape player for the room, and we brought a recording of a speech we had done. We plugged it in, we all watched it together, and we gave each other feedback on how those presentations could be better, how could
I would fill in the gaps, but I'm not quite sure what was going to be said. That I think if we,
I know it was going to be good.
it was going to be good, and I'm sure we're like you said, we know
God,
it's going to be
you know,
good. We'll get there.
I'm moving, and the upside and downside is the good part of moving now is I have plenty of time to move.
Yeah.
The downside is, I want to be doing some other things, and there's a lot of cost associated with moving. But the good news about it, another piece of good news is I have great internet where I'm going.
Yeah. Hey.
So, but I don't know where I bumped off, but that was one of the most creative times when getting that feedback from colleagues and us brainstorming how we could, move our businesses forward. And so maybe, it just occurred to me, Mark, as you were saying that, when these minds come together, maybe you just need a small group of friends that come and you put a little bit of structure to it, and you say, here's what we're going to try to do. We're going to look at each other's business. We're going to talk about the challenges and see if we can brainstorm some creative ideas and help each other to get through this. I think that would be awesome.
Well, I think we're going to have to be wrapping up here pretty soon. I'd like to ask you guys each 2 more questions. It's going to be more of a speed round. Okay. So off the cuff, I'm going to start with you, Mark. What are you most excited about right now in your business? What are you most excited about?
Well, what immediately comes to mind is the virtual version of our Weekend Achiever Circle.
Ooh.
Awesome. Oh, that's very exciting.
Yeah. How many Achiever Circles have you done? 100 and?
We've done 149, and we're full 2 weeks from now in Minneapolis for number 150. And at the moment, we've been in touch with everyone, and so far, we're planning to hold it live. But with everything that's changing every 24 hours, they know that, something could happen that might prevent that. But we're already brainstorming on what some virtual solutions could be for that.
I love that. In fact, I'm taking my 2-day seminar to a virtual format in May. And it makes me think, Katherine, there's an opportunity for you as a train the trainer person to start offering techniques on how do you get more group engagement through virtual.
We're already talking about it. What are the tools and what are the exercises you could include in these virtual formats that can still get that level of engagement, and where would you use them, and what would be the most appropriate ones? We're already working on a list, and we plan to get that out really soon. Yeah.
So let me ask you the same question, Katherine. What are you most excited about right now? Couple of sentences in your business.
Well, I'm going to get moved and get a new office set up. That's the main thing. But I'm really excited about time that I never had to write the book. Yeah. And I feel like people, I know, Mark, music to your ears. I feel like a book is something that people
really represents you well as an expert, right? We can fill in the gaps there.
Make or break your success in your business. That's what she was going to say.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I feel like people can buy a book in the next few months. They might not be able to buy much else, but a book they might be able to do. And so I think it's a good move for me on a lot of fronts. And I'm hoping I can put something out that would be very helpful and meaningful at this time. So.
Agreed. And at Jumpstart, we're going to share a strategy for giving your book away that actually can generate hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue. And so there will be no better time to hear about that strategy than at Jumpstart. So last question for each of you. Mark, is there anything I should have asked that I haven't about this topic, about how can we thrive, not just survive? Tapping into creativity, maintaining our strength, strategies. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that I should have asked you about?
Well, I think that's a great question. Let me suggest what comes to my mind immediately. And that is, people come to us for what we do. They stay with us because of who we are. And during this time of unprecedented change, and challenge for so many. It's who we are during this time that is going to make the biggest difference. And if I could just add an end note on that, I want to encourage both of you and everyone who's watching or listening to this is, it's one thing to have a conversation on Zoom or on the phone or face-to-face with a client, a prospect, an attendee. What we are not hearing is what's going on behind the scenes. The person we're talking to may appear to be fine, but his or her spouse may be scared to death. I have Kylie, my assistant, and I had a client today share with me, they both shared with me today, that they have a senior in high school. They packed up their belongings on Monday or Tuesday of this week. They're not going back. There's no prom. There's going to be no, unlikely to be a graduation ceremony, at least, my mother was rushed to the hospital on Tuesday, and only one person is allowed in the hospital. So my brother and I would not have even been allowed to sit in the waiting room. And so whether it's parents, whether it's children, whether it's our spouse, we also need to take that gift of compassion and supersize it for even what we might not be hearing in that conversation.
Mm-hmm. Supersize. I love that. I heard the term today, super service. Same thing, right? Versus customer service. This is a time of super service for our existing and past customers, right? We really need to rally around our people and make sure we're there for them. That's really wise. Thank you for sharing that, Mark. Katherine, same question to you. Is there anything that I should have asked that I haven't? Is there parting thoughts? Oh, I bet if we hang, she'll be right back. This has been such a meaningful session. Katherine, parting thoughts before we go. Anything I haven't asked you, or something that you really wanted to share that we haven't touched on?
I think I'd echo Mark's sentiments, and that is that there's two conversations I think we should focus on. One is our client and those in our clients' lives. How can we serve them? How can we be compassionate? How can we just listen? I read something recently that someone grieving doesn't really, it's okay to say, I'm not sure what to say, but I want you to know that I care about you, and I want to, I want you to know that you're cared for, and that we're, thinking of you, and or whatever. I think we just have to do the best we can with that. But also they said that don't try to focus on telling people just to hold strong and get through it to get back to where they were. That there's a lot of really great encouragement to help people know that they're actually getting to a place they've never been. They're going to become something they've never been through this. And that's a good thing to hold on to. I think there's also a second conversation we should pay a lot of attention to, and that's the one in our own head. And that, the same thing that we would give to others, we would give to ourselves, and I think Mark, your whole idea of a morning routine, I almost think we should have a daily routine, really the whole, Tom and I've been getting up and saying, okay, let's lay out the day today, just today, let's just lay out the plan. What are our priorities? Where's our focus going to be, and what's our intention today? And that's been very helpful, and laying out the daily schedule. So I think our own personal conversation, is we've got to fill the well before we can bring others to a drink. And so, taking care of ourselves in this. Yeah.
Great reminders.
And I can hardly wait to read your book, Katherine.
Now I'm really committed because I've made the public announcement. Yeah.
Thank you both for a really meaningful discussion. Thank you for coming together. We'll be sharing this, of course, at DSI, our Facebook group, and throughout the industry. And I want to just encourage those who are listening in that you've got this. if we can look at this like it really is not a different day than it was yesterday and tomorrow. One thing that always encourages me is I look out my window in my office where it's still sunny tonight. Sorry, Mark, I'm sure it's dark there. And I see Catherine's got sun, but I think tomorrow there'll be a sun. In Phoenix, there's almost always sun. The sky will be blue. There will be air to breathe. There's food to eat. We have toilet paper, all the essentials, right? We can kind of talk ourselves back off the ledge that way by just looking around at what's going right. Remind ourselves that we are in the best industry in the world and with really wonderful colleagues. I want to make an offer for you two, and I'm sure that you would second this, that you guys have got this out there, but if you ever feel like you need someone to talk to as far as advice on what to do with your business, I would love for you, Mark and Katherine, to share your contact information. How can we get a hold of you if someone was interested in finding out more about coaching or, like just help getting through this personal, through the challenges right now or going forward? Mark, could you lead us off at how do we reach you?
I think the best path would be to go to markleblanc.com. And in fact, there's a 45-minute luncheon speech video that is on my website on how to have your best year ever. I should probably rename it into how to have a good year this year.
Yeah.
But if anybody needs a pick-me-up or a lift, it's gotten rave reviews. But all of my contact information is on the site.
That's awesome. And I'm going to get that video. If it's on YouTube or Vimeo, I'll repost it on our Facebook group so we can share that with them. But I'll rename it. How to have a good year this year for you.
How to have a good year.
I love it.
How about you, Katherine?
Yeah, same thing. It's on our website, which is lionspeak.net. I always say don't go to lionspeak.com because there's a Lions Peak winery. So if you want wine, go there. But if you want, communications coaching, come to lionspeak.net. And my contact information is there. A direct email for me is Katherine@lionspeak.net. And I would welcome the opportunity to support and be supported. Because I think that's the task at hand. Yeah.
Well, that's definitely what's happened tonight. Thank you both for being really great mentors and coaches for all of us here in Jumpstart Nation. And we really appreciate you taking your time and sharing your knowledge and your wisdom with us tonight. We appreciate you so much.
We appreciate you, Vanessa.
Thank you.
And thank you all for listening in. And until next time, be well.